We're talking with Matt Darrah, Hidden Gem feature today. And Matt, here at Clarinda Academy, first of all, just kind of tell me what you do now. I know you're the wrestling coach, so you can talk about that, but that's not all you are here.
Yes, that's right. My job right now is, since about last May, I've been the transition one of the transition coordinators, and what we do is work on discharge planning. We get the kids set up for their next phase of whether they want to go into the military, back to high school, transitioning back to their home schools. We may have to have meetings with their school districts. If they're a special ed kid, we have to have with our IEP meetings and make sure their arrangements are done for that. So a lot of things that we do are relating to what the next phase is going to look like for these students, especially when they go back home to get ready for returning to their home schools.
And you are the wrestling coach. Tell me about that. We're right in the middle of wrestling season.
Yep, I am in the middle of my 19th year as a head coach. It's hard to believe it's been that long, but it has been that long. And like I said, January is kind of a hard time for us. We try not to wrestle a lot early in January. We've had a lot of discharges. Our kids come and go whenever they're done with their program, completing all their phase packets they have to get through, earning their Eagle status, which is our leadership status, getting them where they're ready to go home. And we happen to lose a lot of kids in January. It's the nature of the beast here. That's what we deal with. That's what I've dealt with the whole time. We have had periods where we've had different setups with trimesters, and now we're in a semester system. So we lose a lot of our athletes during the middle of the season. So we have to regroup and take the ones we have and try to finish the year as strong as we can with the ones that we do have.
And I think I was told you coach a lot of. In your career here, 19 years here. How many? What other sports have you coached?
I still coach soccer. Soccer is my other sport that I coach. I've been the head coach. This will be my third year again. Off and on, I've assisted with that. I've helped out with powerlifting, weightlifting in years past. And that's basically it. Those are my sports. That's what I kind of like to do. So those are the things that I've coached.
We'll get back to wrestling here, but tell me the soccer thing. Tell me about coaching soccer. I mean, these kids probably not a lot of experience playing soccer when they come in here.
Well, actually, you'd be surprised. We have a lot of students from out of state, like California kids, and a lot of Hispanic kids that have grown up around the sport, and they've played soccer, and we've been successful before. We've actually won a district game in the past, and we work really hard with obviously their skills and enhancing their skills, but like we said, it's an experience thing. They've never played a lot of organized soccer, so we're at a disadvantage there. We don't have club teams. A lot of the schools we play have the advantage of going to Council Bluffs, Omaha, so we're at a disadvantage there. And this is going to be our first year of the varsity soccer, where we're actually competing against like regular high schools in the varsity level. We've been mostly JV the last couple of years, so we're looking to do something different with that and hopefully have some success with that as well.
Great. Now back to wrestling. You had mentioned the discharge stuff, and I'll stop assuming things because I assume they weren't soccer players. So tell me, when you get these some of these guys, or maybe even girls, I guess, for the wrestling program, what kind of experience do you generally see there?
Typically, most of our students have not really wrestled that much, or most of our kids come in and they think it's the WWE type wrestling, the fake wrestling, So we don't. The only kids that really have a lot of experience that we usually deal with are either the Iowa kids, and we have a couple Nebraska kids that have had some experience, been exposed to some of the clubs, teams up in Lincoln or Omaha. So there are a few kids, and sometimes I'd rather have a kid that hasn't wrestled. I mean, a perfect example from a couple years ago, we had this Maryland kid, Karan Pinson, never seen a wrestling mat in his life. Came here, was an outstanding football player for us. Earned some accolades for that, and we got him hooked into wrestling right away and taught him the Burroughs double, the blast double, and I mean he went on to 22 wins, 3 points away from going to the state meet. He actually went home to Maryland. I went out and watched him wrestle in the Maryland State tournament as a senior, so that was a pretty cool thing. So I'd rather have guys that don't have a lot of experience, so they don't fall back on those what they call bad habits. A lot of wrestlers that wrestle in middle school and grade school have bad habits, and they don't want to open up or be coachable to your ways. So sometimes that's difficult, but yeah, I love the challenge of taking kids that have never wrestled and building them into a team, and also the individual into somebody that has success.
That's awesome. You got to tell me kind of how that the process of that kind of goes. How do you approach that? If somebody comes in and has never wrestled before, how do you start?
Well, I mean, it's all about sticking with the basics. I mean, we teach basic moves. I mean, that's what I grew up with. From my experience, I mean, I watched a 2-time state champion that my father had. That he won two state titles with the double leg and a couple other moves from his feet, and he was just good, solid. So we preach basic moves, basic techniques. Some variations off of those. And also we work on making sure that, hey, they're in good position, you're aggressive, you're in shape, and that's how we try and, progress through a season. So
I love the specific examples like you just gave me with the Penson kid from Maryland. Can you talk maybe about some other kids that have stood out to you during your 19 years wrestling, maybe guys that even had experience coming in?
Well, obviously there are. I mean, we've had some success. I mean, I think I've had 9 state qualifiers. Of course, the year we had the 2, the Adamson boy from Creston and Rodriguez from Marshalltown. Those were the 2 kids that we took to state together, and they both got 5th. Rodriguez was, I think, 1 move away from being in the finals, and he got tossed for 5 in the last 8 seconds, and that cost him a state championship, or at least a state title attempt, in the finals. Of course, we lost Gavin Grimmel. He had a tragic accident. He was another one that had probably the most talent, and he just fell short. And he didn't quite have the best day. In his semifinal or his consolation match. So I mean, there's a lot more. There's a lot of names. I had a kid in 2000 named Josh Uhas that never wrestled either. And he came here and he won like 31 matches. I think he lost to the same, what was the kid? He lost a kid from Corning like 5 times that year. So, I mean, he just couldn't get past that kid. And I think it was a Sink kid, but he couldn't get past him. So, he never got to go to district or state. I had a kid from Omaha that was a freshman, Darrell Richards. He got beat. He got 3rd in his sectional. He just had a tough time. He had 2 state qualifiers in his sectional and place winners. So there's all kinds of memorable kids in my mind. I don't stay up with them like I should or I could. Some of them have gone home and lost contact with, but we've had a lot of success, and there's a lot of kids that have come through our school that I think have made themselves better people from being involved in our wrestling program.
Well, that's great. You mentioned your dad, so we got to kind of talk about your upbringing, and I mean, wrestling has been in your life quite a bit. So, if those that don't know, tell them about your dad and how he was a wrestling coach as well.
Well, I don't know the true story about this, but they tell me that I came out of my mom with a singlet on, so I don't know about that. But my father coached West Des Moines Dowling for 20 years. His teams that I were involved with, we won 74 straight duels. My 3 years on varsity, his teams, I think in 10 years, he said they won 210 duels and lost 1. He has the highest win percentage still in the state of Iowa. They didn't wrestle back then like they do now, where they can have multi-duels. They only had like nine duels, and then like you could have like 4 or 5 tournaments. So the wrestling is a little different as far as the volume of matches you can get now. And it's great for the kids that they have more matches, I think, to a degree. But Dad preached the basics, I mean, teaching these kids how to wrestle, basic moves, but also, excelling at a high level is something that he coached all kinds of, state teams. I think his teams won seven state tournaments. They won the first 3 dual state tournaments, 4 traditional tournaments. So he's pretty accomplished, and it's not like I really have to live up to him, because I don't have a program where I can build on every year. I mean, his famous quote was, people would ask him all the time, well, what are you going to do next year when the barn's empty? And he'd say, well, the barn's not empty. There's plenty of horses in the barn still. So,
definitely some great programs, or a great program in Dowling, great teams. I guess, what did you learn from him that you maybe use now? Like you said, it's a totally different thing with, building the program year to year, but what did you learn in terms of the coaching?
I think the biggest thing is I mean, my dad still has relationships with a lot of his former athletes, so they still contact him, they still stay in touch. I think the biggest thing is just caring about the athletes that are under your care. Also making sure that they have discipline. It's a little discipline. Especially with us here, these guys have not had a lot of discipline, a lot of structure in their lives, and that's kind of what we provide, is structure and discipline. So those 2 things, I think, are something that we try and emphasize in our program. along with having fun. I mean, it's fun to win. I don't like to lose. I've not experienced a lot of losing, but obviously being here, that's kind of changed my outlook on it. But just having fun, whatever you're doing, have fun and compete. Compete to win, compete to have fun, but also learn things that you can take with you the rest of your life. I think that's the biggest thing that I learned from my dad is take things that will help you later in your life.
So you go to Dowling. Tell me take me from the day you graduated to now. What were you doing between that point and now?
That's a long time, Derek.
You don't have to be too specific, but
I went to college. I wanted to go to BV and wrestle for Al Baxter, who was my dad's first state champion. But I had like about $11,000 in scholarships that I earned, and it was still going to cost my parents and me another $10,000 or so to go there. So they said, well, why don't you look at some state schools? And so I ended up in Northwest Missouri State, got my degree in sociology and criminal justice after like 5 years of school. I wrestled there 2 years, and they dropped the program for financial reasons. I mean, they say financial reasons, but I think it was more had to do with Title IX. So I went home and worked for a while, worked in the restaurant industry for a while, and one of my dad's friends was a juvenile court officer, and he told my dad, he's like, well, Matt should go check out Clarinda Academy down in Clarinda. And, of course, I had friends from college that were from here, and I didn't ever think about it. We opened in 1992, so that was – in that time frame, I was working the restaurant business, and actually I went to the state tournament, and I heard the Clarinda Academy kid call to the mat. I'm like, well, they have wrestling. That's pretty cool. So I went and checked it out, and came down here in April of 1995, and I got hired, and I've been here ever since.
So were you immediately the wrestling coach?
Well, my first year I was an assistant coach, and then 1 year we kind of did a co-head coaching thing because the gentleman that was there before me, he left after a year of being the head coach. He's now official. Actually, he's one of my best friends. He's an official now in Southeast Iowa. So him and I kind of co-coached 1 year, and then he left, and then it was basically became my program after that. So 2 years of an assistant, and then co-coached 1 year, and then took over basically since then the whole time.
Now, I got to ask you, because you had mentioned your outlook has kind of changed from the Dowling perspective, where it was, winning was a big important factor, and you, like you said, you don't like to lose, but it's not really the number one issue here, or not even number two, really. But I guess, have you ever considered or thought, man, I'd like to take over a wrestling program at a standard high school?
That has been a consideration. Obviously, the job, I think I'm not a teacher by trade. I don't have a teaching degree, so it would have to be like either as an at-risk coordinator or dean of students or something like that. I know Dowling had an opening a couple years ago, and I think they asked my dad to come back and do it, but being in his upper 80s, I don't think he wanted to take that on. I mean, today's kids are a little different than they were back then. I think you could do a lot more differently with them discipline-wise, but yeah, I mean, I thought about it, but I love this place. I mean, I bleed black and gold, so it's ingrained in me here. But excuse me, I would think about it. I know Clarinda had an opening, but just the thing is, it's matching the job with the coaching. It's kind of tough when you don't have a teaching certificate or teaching degree, so that makes it kind of hard for me to really go to another school. But I mean, I like where I'm at. It would be nice to have a feeder program, have junior high kids that I could work with, young kids, a kids program that I could work with. We don't really have that here. That's a disadvantage. But, yeah, I mean, if the right opportunity, I would consider it, but I don't think I'm going to leave. My wife and family are ingrained in this area, so.
Well, tell me about the wife and the family. What do you have? What do you all have there? How did you meet your wife? And you have kids, I assume, maybe.
Yeah, fortunately, I have 3 lovely daughters. I have no boys. So I think it's that Dan Gable curse that, we can't, guys that wrestle or whatever. I think there are coaches that have boys, I'm sure, but I just didn't get blessed like that. So I'm blessed with 3 lovely ladies. And my wife, we met actually here in Clarinda. It was through the bank drive up. It was kind of funny how we met, but we met and we've been together like 17 years, married.
How old are your girls?
My girls I have a sophomore at Clarinda, I have a 7th grader, and I have a second grader. So kind of spread out a little bit.
Yeah. Wrestling. Have they ever thought about wrestling?
We clear the furniture out and do a little wrestling at home, but I don't know. It's a tough situation actually. I've coached a lot of kids that have wrestled girls, And I'm not against them or opposed to them wrestling, but I just think wrestling boys, it's a lose-lose proposition for the boys. There's no winning that for the boy. I mean, I had a kid wrestle that girl this year that, I mean, they say she has a wrestling room in her garage, and she's really talented. So, I mean, there are a lot of talented females, and they have, girls wrestling. It's just our state doesn't have girls wrestling, and maybe we'll get to that at some point. I know Coach Gable is pushing for that, to have more girls involved, and that's a way to keep boys programs in the college level around. But, yeah, my middle daughter talked about it a little bit, but now she's playing basketball at 7th grade. So I don't know. My wife's not really in favor of that, so.
Yeah. Got to clear with everybody. Matt, did we miss anything? Is there anything we need to touch on at all, or did we catch everything?
I don't know, man. You're doing this interview. I think that's pretty thorough. Hopefully people will enjoy this and understand a little bit about what we do here. I guess the only other thing I'd say is, we're trying to push for a strong end of the season. We actually wrestled Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. We actually were supposed to wrestle last night, but we got canceled because of snow, and I know they had to move the Corner Conference basketball games for that reason too. But we're going to try and finish strong this season, and hopefully our goal is always as ever, get some kids to state tournament, get some kids on the podium. I don't know, we'll see where we're at this year. We've lost a lot of our horses from this year, so we got a couple that have replaced them. Some unknowns a little bit right now, not a lot of people know about. They haven't really gotten to the lineup, so we'll see what happens from this point out, and hopefully we can either get some kids, past districts into the state tournament, or at least try and get some kids to district. That's kind of our goal every year, is to, advance into the state series.
Matt, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, Derek. Appreciate you.